Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays are stories that I like to bring to you that you might not have heard of. If you would like to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/JessRose5472. Or you can just join us on the live, or thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to drop a like or a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Or you can just watch. That's great too. I appreciate that too. So, tonight's story, as the title says, is Tupac, Brenda's Got a Baby, the heartbreaking true story. Okay? So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you just, if you're not aware of Tupac's history and how he started, I'm going to give you that part, because it will give you more of an idea where he was coming from when he wrote Brenda's Got a Baby. Okay, so we have Lassane Parish, Crooks. Okay, so Lassane Parish, I'm saying it wrong again, Lassane Parish Crooks, born the 16th of June 1971. Okay, he was born in East Harlem, Manhattan, New York City, obviously in the US. Now his mom was Afeni Shakur, dad Billy Garland. All right. He had one older stepbrother and one younger stepsister. All right. Now, Lassane was renamed Tupac Amaru Shakur when he was aged 1. Okay. And he was actually named after Tupac Amaru II. And this was a man who was executed after an uprising. He was like a warrior, and he was actually executed after an uprising against the Spanish rule against South America in 1781. So this is who he was named after. He's like named after a warrior, you know. Now, he didn't really know his dad. I will say that Afeni was married in 1968. That marriage ended because the ex-husband found out that Tupac wasn't his. The dad's actually Billy Garland. Now, his dad, who, like I say, biological dad, he didn't really have a relationship with him at all. Now, his mum and dad were part of the Black Panthers. All right. Now, the Black Panthers were a black power political organisation founded in 1966. They ended in 1982. Now, this was a social justice group they were challenging police brutality. Okay. And around 1968, they actually had about 2,000 members. They were founded by 2 college students who had just had enough of the police brutality going on in the inner cities. And they wanted to help the black community and fight for the black community against these injustices. That's where the Black Panthers were founded, etc. And so, like I say, Tupac's mum and dad were part of the Black Panthers, all right? Now, his stepdad, Matulu Shakur, okay? Now, he treated Tupac as his own. He did. He was also part of the Black Panthers. But Tupac did say he was a gangster, he was a bit of a street hustler. And he did end up going to prison quite early on in Tupac's life. Okay. So, now, a bit about his mum. She was actually arrested in a raid 2 months before Tupac was born. Okay. I've watched something where he said what they did. They wanted to get as many of the Black Panther members in this one night as possible. And it was early morning raids, and they knocked on his mum's door while she's pregnant with Tupac. Like I say, she's 7 months pregnant, she's heavily pregnant. Um, and they light a match, basically saying there's a fire outside here. And as she opens the door, the police burst in, put a gun to her pregnant stomach, put a gun to her head, arrest her there and then. Okay. It's apparently over conspiracies to blow up 2 police stations or something. They ended up arresting 21 members of the Black Panther Party, all right? So she ended up representing herself in court, and she was acquitted of all charges a month later, just before Tupac was born. So this is sort of this is what he was born into, you know. When you hear him talk about his mom, very proud. He says his early years, he resented her a little bit because it seemed that she was more for fighting for other people, other people in the Black community, and not her own family. She wasn't there for him. He does say that his early days. Okay, so we get to 1984. Tupac at this point is age 13. He moves to Baltimore in Maryland. I know I haven't pronounced that right. Maryland. Okay. Now, Afeni, Tupac's mom, she was struggling with drug addiction at this point. She'd lost her job at this point. That's why they moved to Baltimore. She was, she was succumbing to the drug life, and his stepdad was now in jail. You know, it wasn't going well. Now, around this time, Tupac finds himself on stage for a fundraiser for Jesse Jackson. Okay. Now, Jesse Jackson was going to be, he was in the primaries to become president at that point in 1984. And this gave him a taste of being on stage, and he absolutely loved it. He knew that's where he wanted to be. Now, in 10th grade, when he was age 14, he transferred to Baltimore School for the Arts, studying acting and poetry, and they did jazz and they did ballet. This was for him. This was where he could be let himself be as creative as he wanted to be. He ended up meeting Jada Pinkett, who goes on to marry Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, where she says he was her best friend there. You know, he'd said he was very popular there, very funny, very talented, appeared in Shakespeare plays, and he was just a very, very talented young man. 1988, at age 17, they moved to Marin City in San Francisco Bay, California. Now, obviously, where he was on the East Coast. This is on the West Coast. And he actually thought that things were going to get better. He thought that he'd be leaving violent crime behind. He thought this was going to be. I suppose he's thinking of Hollywood, isn't he? I would presume that was where his mind went. And unfortunately, he went from the frying pan into the fire. But it went on to help him relate to just so many different people, so many different types of people, so many walks of life. Afeni, though, obviously his mum, while they're in San Francisco Bay, she becomes addicted to crack now. So this has progressed from where she was to now. She was really, really struggling. And he felt he couldn't help her. He couldn't live with her. So he moved out. Okay. It was just too much for him. This was. So now Tupac finds himself young, homeless, and broke. All right. He would smoke weed. He'd be couch surfing in friends' houses. But he discovered this love of hip hop. Absolutely loved it. Okay. And it was so gritty, and he just, although it said that he also loved U2 and Culture Club, and there was another one that shocked me, Kate Bush, was it? Just a real mixture of music that this young man was listening to. So then we get to 1989. Around this point, he's around 17, 18, okay? And he meets a girl called Layla Steinberg, all right? And he meets her in a park, of all places. And they begin to talk about Winnie Mandela, okay, with what was going on with Nelson Mandela over in South Africa at the time. And they quickly become friends just from meeting in a park, okay? And over this period of time, he'd been writing poems, like real poems about his life and what he'd seen. And he convinces Layla to actually become his manager. Now, she's got no music industry experience whatsoever, but she agrees to become his manager. Okay, so in 1990, at age 18/19, he gets signed to TNT Records. Okay, and at this point, he goes on tour with a rap group called Digital Underground. Now, I don't know if you would know this, and I know I'm going to sound stupid singing it, but do you remember? It's called the Humpty Dance. And he goes, to the Humpty Hump. I do the Humpty Hump. And there's a dance with it and everything. I know I'm singing it. I'm doing it ridiculous, but I'm showing my age as well. I really am showing my age, but that was what they sang, okay? Now, like I say, he goes on tour with Digital Underground. But the leader of that group, who, like I said, sang the Humpty Dance, he said he's welcome to come, and he can maybe rap in the background. He can lift equipment maybe. But, he's going to have to pay his dues. He's going to have to start from the bottom type thing. I think that was the point he was making. But Tupac began to get noticed. He did start to get noticed. And we get to August 1991, okay? And he gets signed to Interscope, okay? Another record company. At this point, he was living in Oakland. And at this point, he recorded his first album, Tupacalypse Now. That's Tupac's first album, okay? Now, we get to 1992, and around this point, he's also filming his first film, Juice, the film's called, all right? And the film's about 4 teenagers in the inner city, and Juice was what these 4 teenagers called, like, power and happiness. That was what they referred to it as in the film, okay? So he's doing really well. Really, really well for such a young fella as well. He really is. Now, one of the songs from Tupacalypse Now was Brenda's Got a Baby. Okay, he also released Trapped as well from that album. Now, Brenda's Got a Baby was my first introduction to Tupac, and it was brought out on MTV, and I think I saw it on, at that time I'd have been 14 going 15. I think it possibly still would have been Sky, and if it was Sky and not cable, it would have been The Box. Don't know if you'll remember The Box. I don't actually know, but it's probably still there, I don't know, but that's where I first heard and saw the video to Brenda's Got a Baby, okay? Now, what he'd done, he'd actually read the sad case about a young girl in the newspaper whilst he was filming on set for Juice, okay? And he was so... while he was on set, he wrote Brenda's Got a Baby. He actually wrote it on set, and he was so involved and wanted to release a video for this song so much. He paid for the video himself. He felt he wanted to shine a light on what was going on within the black community at that time. Okay, so, and what he'd noticed, what had also kind of pushed him to write this song, was he'd noticed over a week period that the story just started to disappear from the newspaper and be forgotten. Like it's done now, let's move on. And it had touched him so much that he had to sort of make sure it wasn't forgotten, and that he felt he could reach more people than these couple of articles could. All right. Now, the video to Brenda's Got a Baby, all right, like I say, please go away and have a look at it, because what I'm about to explain to you just does not do it justice. But it is a young girl. She's 12 years old. She begins, her mum's not very good, her dad's on drugs. She begins a relationship. My fingers are going up. She begins a relationship with an older cousin. She gets pregnant. She has the baby on the bathroom floor. She basically throws the baby away into a dumpster. She does go back and get the baby, but she can't afford to raise this child because no one will let her live with them. All the family have kicked her out. So she starts dealing drugs until she gets robbed. Eventually, she begins selling herself because she's got nothing. She's got no money at all. And she ends up being murdered. Okay. And at the end of the video, Tupac's actually holding what I believe is supposed to be the little girl that she'd thrown away, that she'd gone back for. And you know, it's a very, very, very sad story. It doesn't make it clear that she goes back for the baby, but in the words where she says Social Security is coming back, and so you can kind of put two and two together, and she does go back for the baby. She can't afford to bring the baby up, and etc., etc. And like I say, she ends up being murdered by the end. This very young girl. It's a very sad video. And because the video says based on a true story, I'd always believed that this was the beginning and the end of the story. I genuinely did. And I came across it again not long ago. I don't know how, I don't know why it came up in my algorithm, but it did. And I started looking into it. And obviously when I'd heard the song all them years ago, I didn't have access to everything I've got access to now. So I started looking into it, and the story is, it is different, but it has got a lot of similarities, and I can see what he was trying to do. So I just want to just tell you the true story behind Brenda's Got a Baby. Okay. Now, he'd wanted to highlight and depict the graphic details of what he'd saw in his life. And he was hoping that it would help bring about change in the inner cities. This is why he did it. He was so proud when the video began being played on MTV. It depicted underage pregnancies and the stress it put on young mothers and their families. It was to highlight so many different things. But what had triggered it was this newspaper article about this young girl. Okay, so I did go and find the actual newspaper article, and this is what happened. Okay, so I can't tell you the real name of the young girl in the story. Now, don't forget Tupac called her Brenda. Okay, so I am going to call her Brenda. Okay, that's not her real name. We don't know her real name. I have searched and searched and searched. I think maybe it's a good thing we don't know. Let me just tell you, but we're going to call her Brenda. Okay, so Brenda, all I've got, was born in 1978. Another reason why it made me think, because of obviously I was born in 78. She was born in Canarsie, Brooklyn, New York. Okay. Now we get to the 20th of October, 1982. All right. And Brenda would have been 4 at this point. Now, Brenda was living with her mum, Lydia Perry, okay, age 22. Her great aunt, so it would be Lydia, her mum's aunt, age 67. Brenda would then be 4. Willie, her younger brother, age 2. Frederick, her youngest brother, age 10 months. Okay, so there's the 5 of them living in this apartment, all right? And that evening, the families, they lived on the 3rd floor of these apartments. And it got really cold. Don't forget, it's October. Apparently, it wasn't mega freezing considering it was October, but it had dropped below a certain temperature. They got quite cold. Now, the day before this, apparently a law had been brought into place to say that landlords couldn't allow you to go without heat or water once the temperatures dropped below a certain degree. Now, don't forget, this is New York. It gets very cold in the winter there. So he mustn't have got the memo about that law that was passed. I'll just say that. All right. So the only way for them to heat their home that evening was to put the oven to 500 degrees and to leave the door open to the oven. That's how they were trying to heat the apartment. And obviously keeping all the windows closed. And plus they went to bed quite early because you're freezing. Where are you going to stay the warmest? You're going to stay the warmest in bed, aren't you? So, like I say, the landlord was supposed to legally provide the heat and water. So, we get to around 9 p.m. that evening. This is what I'm saying. They must have gone to bed quite early. And one of their neighbours, now I have seen her name, but I suppose it would be hard for her. So, I'm not going to name her. Her name is out there, but a neighbour was putting the rubbish out, basically, and she could smell gas in the apartment's hallway. Okay, so if you imagine flats or apartments, you've got your front door, you've probably got front door opposite, front door a bit further down, front door beside you type thing. And she said she could smell gas. But what she did, she just came out into the hallway, sprayed some air freshener and went back into her apartment. Okay, so another neighbour, okay, the next day, she can smell gas, all right? And she can also hear a little one crying in the apartment. It did sound like she'd been crying for quite a long time. And this is about 3:30 p.m. the next day, all right? So she calls 911. Okay, so the police knock. And little Brenda, who is 4, remember, she comes to the door and she says, I can't open it. I don't know how to open it. So the police, they talk her how to, open the door. They talk her through how to open it. And by the time they do, it's about 4 p.m. And as the police walk into the apartment, see little Brenda there, but they walk into the apartment, they find Anne great aunt Lydia, Brenda's mum, Willie and Frederick, her brothers, all deceased. All four of them. Okay? They'd actually died from asphyxiation, all right, from inhaling carbon monoxide from the oven that they'd had to keep open because the landlord hadn't heeded the law that had been passed, that these families had to have heat. It was freezing. The pilot light had gone out, and it said that when they took them all to hospital, they all had more than 60% carbon monoxide in their blood. Now, Brenda was taken to hospital, but she was actually okay. She was all right, it said. And they said they believed that she had, not succumbed to this carbon monoxide poisoning because where her bed was, it was in a section of the apartment that had an air pocket. So that's why she didn't succumb to this carbon monoxide poisoning. But in one night, and when did she wake up? She's walking around that apartment. She's only 4. She's walking around that apartment. Her brothers aren't waking up. Her mum's not waking up. Her aunt's not waking up. Such a shame. Okay. So after the funerals of her great aunt, her mum, and her brothers, Brenda, now don't forget, I'm going to use the things we know her name isn't Brenda, okay? Just the name I'm going to use. But Brenda went on to live with another great aunt, okay? And this great aunt was called Gladys Perry, okay? Now, Gladys herself, well, Gladys was known to like the odd tipple or 2 or 3. In fact, she used to go and drink in the park with other like-minded women who liked to drink in the park. This was Gladys, okay? Now, living in the house with Gladys is her daughters, Denise and Barbara Ann, and her sons, Clarence, Roger, and Kamal. So there's 5 kids in there. Not young. And her. Now, Gladys, the great aunt, her daughter, Barbara Ann, who would have been Brenda's mum's first cousin, okay, she actually had Barbara Ann with her first cousin, Marvin. So, Brenda's mum's first cousins, mum and dad, were first cousins. A lot going on, okay? A lot of incest going on here, okay? So it made them, it said it made them social pariahs of the area, okay? It was said they were all looked at like they were a bit weird. The other kids were from different fathers, not believed to be related, but Barbara Ann, like I say, her dad was her mum's first cousin, okay? Now, Clarence, the eldest son, now he'd been a high school basketball star. He was doing, from what I can gather, quite well. But he ended up dropping out of school at 16 to go and sell weed. He blew the chance that he could have had. And it said he'd actually started smoking weed at the age of 7, okay? And was now smoking an ounce a day. So quite a heavy smoker. Okay, so we get to March the 27th, 1991. All right, 7:30 a.m. Okay, now Brenda now is age 12. Okay. Now, if you remember Tupac's video, Brenda, in his video, was 12 years old. All right. Now, Brenda, in this story, she's 12. She's quite shy. People said she was quite slim. Like a lot of the girls of around her age had become a bit more fuller figured, you might say. But she was still quite childlike in her own personality as well. Like her friend that she'd walked to school with, she was only 8. Okay, so she was quite childlike, Brenda was. But she'd recently started wearing quite baggy clothes to school. No one had really taken much notice of this, but she'd been taking wearing baggy clothes to school. So that morning of March 27, she leaves to school with her friend, her 8-year-old friend. Now, the 8-year-old friend obviously goes to her elementary school and she goes on to middle school. Okay, that's Brenda's morning. Now, the same date, March 27, 1991, don't forget she's left for school at about 7:30 that morning. By 8 a.m., there's an apartment maintenance manager called MacArthur Williams, okay? And he heads to the trash compactor. It's part of his duties. Goes in, goes to turn it on. And what he does, he puts his music on in the background just to drown out the sound of, the sound of the crushing and everything else, all right? And about 9:45 a.m., so he's been in there a while and, the trash is all being compacted up and everything else, he hears a high-pitched screaming coming from a shopping bag inside of the trash compactor. Okay, like this high-pitched scream. He calls 2 of his colleagues over, like from in the building, and he gets them. He's like, I had the music on, I don't know what I heard. We need to confirm, is there something in there? Sure enough, they hear this noise again, and they're like, yeah, definitely something in there. So they call 911, all right? So Sergeant Insardi comes out, and he looks into the compactor, and he's got his flashlight, and he's kind of looking around in the compactor, and he could see tiny toes peeking out from under a newspaper in this compactor. And when he kind of separates in there, he recognises straight away it's a little baby boy, all right? And this baby's covered in blood, dried blood by this point, leaves in his eyes, and the umbilical cord still attached. Okay, so he thought he was dead, genuinely thought this baby was dead. But as he touches his belly, and he says his belly was quite cold, his little legs start to curl up, the baby's legs. He sort of goes into the fetal position. He knows he's alive. Okay, so the baby's taken out, rushed straight to the hospital, and he has got hypothermia. Okay, we don't know how long he's been in this trash compactor for. Has got hypothermia. But once they start feeding him, the nurses do, he starts to warm up. And the nurses actually name him Trevor, this little baby. Okay. Now, MacArthur Williams, the maintenance manager, he tells the police that he believes this baby has come from one of 2 families that are in this apartment building. And he points straight to the Perrys. He says they're your best bet. And it's because of the incest in the family. He thinks they're a bit weird. He thinks they're a bit strange. And he points the sergeant straight up to their apartment, okay? Now, Gladys, straight away, she said, it's not the girls, not my niece, nothing to do with us, don't know what you're on about. Brenda's gone to school, it's not my daughter, not us. But when the bathroom is inspected, you could smell blood in their bathroom. Okay. So they go to Brenda's school, the police do. And they take her out of her class and they start talking to her and they start asking her questions. And originally she does deny it. She must have been terrified. This girl's 12 years old. And she does deny it at first, but then she finally admits it was her. Okay. And basically she's taken away, and the family court would decide what to do with Brenda while the trial was pending, her trial. And I just thought, but she was 12. She must have been terrified. To have done that to her baby, she must have been so frightened. But they didn't know whether to send her to a family member, into foster care. They weren't sure what they were going to do with Brenda. Obviously, she wasn't going home. But they needed to find somewhere for her while the trial was pending. Okay. So March 28th, 1991 at 8:10 in the morning. So this is the next day now. Okay. Clarence Perry, okay, was spotted on the roof of a building and he was threatening to jump. Clarence Perry, Gladys's son, which would be Brenda's second cousin, would have been her mum's first cousin. So technically, I suppose it's her kind of second cousin. Okay. Well, he's threatening to jump off this building. And 911, of course, are called. And he eventually admits, because he's screaming, you know, I don't know what to do. Baby, he's not making sense. And eventually he admits that he's the father of the baby. Now, I've tried to work out the age as best I can of Clarence, and I've got him at least at 18, at the very least. She was 12 years old. Okay? So this isn't just a incest case, which is bad enough. Okay? It's not just that. It's just... But the family members, are you ready? The family members actually excuse this. Remember what I said about the maintenance manager saying they were odd, they were a bit of a weird family? Well, the family members excused this, saying he didn't know any better. In the Perry household, because don't forget, Clarence's sister, Barbara Ann, was the child of Gladys, her mum, and Marvin, her mum's first cousin. So this is all a love who you with type family, okay? And it says in the Perry household, there was no difference between family, love, and romantic love. No difference, apparently. So they were excusing it. Well, I don't even know what to say about that part, but what's the excuse for the fact that he was a grown man and she was a 12-year-old little girl? What's the excuse there then? Because you may say, well, they're cousins and... right, okay, that's another subject, but what about the sexual assault and sexual abuse of a little girl? Are we just going to bypass that as well? Now, Clarence was indicted on second-degree rape and sexual abuse charges, okay? Brenda wasn't charged in exchange for speaking up against her cousin, okay? So she came forward, she spoke up. They both admitted what had gone on. Now, Clarence pled guilty to secondary statutory rape. And he got, are you ready for his sentence? He got 6 months in prison with 5 years probation for raping his little cousin. He got 6 months. And it's not just, he didn't just rape, he got her pregnant. And it said she was very childlike. She was very immature for a 12-year-old. I don't know how mature you can be at 12, but she was very mature for a 12-year-old, immature for a 12-year-old. So I can't imagine the emotion she must have gone through. I mean, when did she even realise she was pregnant? She gave birth in the bathroom on her own before she went to school. And she thought the safest thing to do was to throw the baby away. And had that compactor, you know, had the baby not woke up or screamed and the maintenance manager hadn't heard it, that baby would never have known. And then would Clarence have just carried on abusing his little cousin? Oh, now this is what I meant to say at the beginning now. Now, obviously with the song, Brenda's Got a Baby, we know that the ending of this is she keeps the baby. It's a little girl, I believe, in the song. And she does end up dying after going into prostitution to get by, you know. At the same age, she's still, you know, she's still very, very young. She's 12, 13 in the story at this point, and it's a heartbreaking story. Well, I don't know what has actually happened to the real Brenda. I don't know. I haven't been able to find anything else. I believe she then went into foster care, but I can't find anything else on this girl. And I really, really genuinely want to believe that she moved on to a family that do know the difference between family love and romantic love. I'd love to believe that. And maybe gone on to live an amazing life. She'd be exactly the same age as I am. And it'd be lovely to know that. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And the reason I've brought this story to you is because I didn't realise it was such. I was shocked. I was shocked. The video, the song is supposed to shock you. It's supposed to do that to you. And I was wondering. I was like, so he's read this newspaper report. What made him do this? And then I saw that in in August of 91, just a few months later, there was a 19-year-old girl in Brooklyn who gave birth in a stairwell of an apartment building. And she put her baby in a trash chute from 10 stories up. Now, this baby obviously didn't live. And I was like, right, okay, is this a thing? And it says that in 1990 alone, there was 400 girls under 15 that had children in New York alone. 400 under 15. That's statutory rape anyway. It doesn't matter if it's a relation or not. And it was a big thing that was happening at that time. And the more I was looking into that, the more I understood why he felt he needed to write that song and do the video the way he did. And I also understand why he ended the video the way he did, because the beginning is very similar to Brenda's story. But the ending's obviously very different. Well, I hope it's very different. I'll just say that. But then he would have been aware of the spate of these pregnancies and girls throwing their children away. Now, I've said there was 400 girls under 15 that had children in New York in 1990, but there was 16 cases of newborns being thrown in the trash between 1990 and 1991. In 1 year, 16 newborn babies thrown away by these young girls. And I just think, what has gone so wrong in their lives that they think that's their only way out? What are their circumstances that they think that's the right thing to do? Are just 16 newborn babies just thrown away. And it was said it just became a thing. I've also read that there was a spate of those cases in, I believe it was Atlanta in America, also in the 90s. It was just young girls throwing their babies away. And I don't know how mentally. I mean, Brenda's baby was found, and little Trevor, all I can hope is that he got adopted and went on to have an amazing life, and maybe doesn't know any of this. But there must have been so many girls out there where they haven't been caught, and they would have just heard of a baby being found in a chute or in a dumpster, and they would know that that's their baby, but they wouldn't be able to speak up. Just very, very, very sad. Now, like I say, Tupac, he wanted to shine a light on this. I believe it was due to his mum's activism, when he was very young, and then him seeing police brutality as he was growing up, and not only that, the violence and the poverty in the inner cities, what he'd grown up with. And I don't know if it's because he then went on he was acting, he was rapping, he was on top of the world. I don't know if I don't know if there was guilt there, or he just wanted to bring everyone with him, but he just wanted the Black community to just have this amazing life. He just wanted to bring them up. And he said, I want to be able to word it properly. He said something. If you saw a rose growing in concrete, say you've got a concrete slabs, and you found a rose growing between these concrete slabs, he said you would just think that was amazing that there's a rose growing at this point. He says, but I don't know if I can word it properly now. And I didn't write it down. I was like, it was so, I don't use the word often, but profound. I genuinely didn't think I'd need to write it down. He said, but with him, okay, he considered himself the rose coming from, the concrete jungle, I suppose, is what they call New York, don't they? And he says, but with him, rather than looking at him and saying, here's this rose growing from a concrete slab or concrete path, all you're seeing is that the rose's leaves might be a bit bedraggled, or the rose isn't quite, as straight as a rose in a garden might be. And he says, and that's all that's noticed about him, is where he's come from, not who he is now. I've probably completely butchered that, but that's what he was getting at. I thought it was very, very good how he worded it. But On the 13th of September 1996, as we probably all know, Tupac was murdered in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. He'd actually been watching Mike Tyson's fight, and he was actually only 25 years old. It was only 5 years after he'd released Brenda's Got a Baby. 5 years. And it's just very sad. I mean, at the time, I think he's 7 years older than me. So I'd have been at 18. 96. Yes, so I'd have been, sorry, yes, 1996, so I'd have been 18. And I suppose at that age, 25 seems a lot older to you, but now it's like, oh, he was a baby. And I think he had so much more to show the world. I genuinely do. But that song from all that way back in 92 when I'd have been 14 has never left me. And I just wanted to find out more about it once I realised that the true story wasn't, it was only based on a true story, and I wanted to know the real true story. So that's where tonight's come from. I'm sorry I don't know any more about the girl in question. I know I've called her Brenda throughout the story, only because, you know, to do the story we need, you know, a name. But I just hope that she went on to live a nice life, really. So that was Tupac, Brenda's Got a Baby, the heartbreaking true story. And it really is heartbreaking. It's really, really, really sad to say. The whole thing is. Oh, God, it's just awful. But thank you so much for joining me. Like I say, I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays are my request evening. Thursdays I like to bring stories that you might not have heard of. If you'd like to like, comment, or subscribe, I'd really appreciate that too. Or if you just want to watch, that's great. So thank you so much again for joining me, and I'll be back next Tuesday. Thank you so much again. Thank you.